Jennifer, key Paducah Chamber members, as well as about 50 private citizens from Western Kentucky with various backgrounds. And one of the priorities to be discussed here in Washington, D.C. is the American Inland Waterway System. Where the Ohio and Tennessee rivers meet at Paducah, there are big plans for riverfront improvements, and they come with a big price tag.
It's a very competitive process.
Chamber of Commerce President Sandra Wilson says winning federal grant money for the projects is not easy. To improve their chances, a delegation of about 50 people is traveling to Washington, D.C.
We are fighting for our own part of the state. We want to build those relationships. We meet with our congressmen from all over Kentucky.
The federal grant request is for a little more than $15 million. The city is partnering with the Paducah-McCracken County Riverport Authority to apply for what's called a build grant. One part involves the Riverfront Commons, an area for your family to enjoy. It also includes an excursion pier and transient dock here at the foot of Broadway. Improvements will prevent damage like this from July 4th when a docked paddle wheeler tore a concrete pillar down. The second part is a Riverport container transfer yard. Bill Miller is executive director of the Riverport Authority.
The build grant would allow us to have containers stacked in this area here behind a secured fence.
The improvements will allow a smoother transition of moving containers on barges rather than on trucks or by rail. That could be an incentive for companies to build in our region. The Department of Transportation denied a similar build grant proposal 1 year ago.
They did a review of our application. We listened, we wrote everything down, we made all of those changes. So, it's very competitive. Ours is a little bit different than a lot of requests throughout the country, but we still feel very positive that we have put our best foot forward.
Now, with lessons learned, they're ready to try again. The group will talk about that request with the Department of Transportation and lawmakers. Now, the DOT could award some of the money, all of the money. We won't know until about mid-November. For now, reporting live in Washington, D.C. with Chief Photojournalist Mike Spissinger, Todd Faulkner, WPSD, Local 6.
All right. So, Todd, what was the reaction to that announcement?
Applause and cheering. Acquiring that money was one of the 3 federal priorities the Paducah Chamber set out during its annual trip this week.
Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has been a champion for our community. Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Leader Mitch McConnell.
In front of a packed room, Senator McConnell delivered the news this group was hoping for.
Welcome to town again. It's great to see all of you. We're actually going to be able to get more money for the cleanup this year than you had asked for. I think you had asked for 30. We believe we're going to be able to get 40.
And he praised leadership that works to secure sizable amounts of money like that.
It's been easy to work with Paducah leadership over the years. You all have always been well organized, had your ducks in a row, made good presentations, and it made everything up here easier.
Another D.C. visit that translates to continued cleanup and local jobs back home.
We're really grateful you're here, and I hope you have a wonderful time while you're in Washington. Thanks a lot.
You may have noticed the senator wearing that sling because of his fall in August. He says it looks worse than it feels.
Shortly after getting out, first they had to operate on it, and then after they got out, I started being stretched and pulled twice a day, every day, for a number of weeks. And the good news is I really don't need this. It's designed to keep you from trying to hug me. I know how much you all want to hug me.
Tomorrow, the Chamber delegation heads to a number of places, including the Department of Transportation. There, they will talk about trying to get that federal money for a new terminal at Barkley Regional Airport. Money for the Paducah Riverfront and the Riverport. Behind me at the Department of Transportation, local leaders gathered to emphasize their request for that support. The Paducah Chamber delegation arrived to the Department of Transportation today with a big ask. Roughly $15 million for improvements to the Paducah Riverfront. Also included money for a container transfer yard at the Riverport. All of it wrapped together into what's called a build grant.
Hey, how are you?
Secretary Elaine Chao surprised the group and welcomed the West Kentucky contingent. Later, one-on-one, she said the grant application process is competitive.
A number of times,
and she loves the entire Paducah Riverfront area.
But there are real infrastructure needs as well. So we've been very responsive. We've given shipyard grants. We have additional small shipyard improvement grants that are coming along. And so we want to work with communities that are nestled right next to ports or have ports.
But other cities are looking for the same funding support. That's why it goes a long way to shake hands and meet face-to-face with the people making the decisions.
Dr. Reese of the college.
The DOT denied a similar request a year ago.
And today I heard the staff say, you know what, we like when people listen, and we think your community listened and responded very well to their feedback.
I have brought the A-team here.
A Trump appointee, Chao is pushing that the president wants communities like Paducah to benefit from federal support and money if it's available.
President Trump feels very strongly that we've got to pay attention to rural America.
Try to announce probably in about a week from now.
And now these local leaders wait to see if the request is approved. The DOT could approve all of that build grant or just a portion. We'll know by November. Here inside the Capitol Visitor Center, local chamber members and elected leaders met face-to-face with Senator Paul to get his support for local projects.
It's good to be here. I was supposed to be in.
Senator Paul greeted the crowd and then discussed how his fiscal responsibility pairs with the area's need of federal funding for local projects.
While I'm a fiscal conservative, if we have a program out there that the government is paying for and they're doing it in all the states, we will advocate for Paducah to get their portion of it.
And he talked about his penny dollar plan.
All in all, I'm optimistic about
cutting 1 penny from every dollar to help pay for projects.
So let's say there's something Paducah really likes, and it's a community grant that we give you, like a build grant, like we talked in there, that will help the community. But what if we told everybody in the country you can get it, but you're going to get 1% less than we thought we had because we don't have enough money? Almost everybody comes up and says, well, that's not unreasonable. You're not talking about getting rid of all government. You're saying we'll spend 1% less. But you present that up here, and the big spending Republicans and Democrats say, oh, no, we could never do that.
Next up, we head over to the Capitol building for a reception with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, his message to the delegation tonight at 10 o'clock. For now, in Washington, D.C., with Chief Photojournalist Mike Spissinger, Todd Faulkner, WPSD, Local 6. The busy and hectic streets of Washington, D.C. were no match for the enthusiasm a Paducah delegation brought to the nation's capital.
If you're not showing up, you don't know what you're missing out on.
Paducah Chamber President Sandra Wilson led the group's efforts to gain federal support for local projects.
Our community will be noted by our presence. We are going to be known as being someone that shows up, that we care, and that we're fighting for our community.
Yeah, I'm going to be the whole time.
The visit, now in its 17th year, appears to have again paid off.
We're really grateful you're here.
Senator Mitch McConnell promised $40 million in funding for ongoing cleanup at the DOE Paducah site. $10 million more than requested. Other key priorities include support for projects involving the Department of Transportation. A $15 million ask from the DOT for improvements to Paducah's riverfront and river port. Plus, talks about help funding a new terminal at Barkley Regional Airport.
But it is a very competitive program.
U.S. Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao met one-on-one with us to talk about it all, and later with the Paducah delegation.
I think it is worth every moment. Our community, 45 members of our community sit behind us and show support for what we're trying to do in Paducah, and that matters a lot.
Appreciate working with you on your federal priorities.
From talks with Congressman James Comer to Senator Rand Paul.
We will advocate for Paducah.
Crisscrossing the Capitol building and greater D.C. with hopes of improving the lives of those back home. In Washington, D.C., with Chief Photojournalist Mike Spissinger, Todd Faulkner, WPSD, Local 6.